Hi, this is Anne with Fiber Designs by Anne. This is Free Motion Quilting a Sunflower plus some tips for beginners, part 1. I started with my hand-painted fabric for the sky, petals, and the leaves. I used Winder Under to fuse them in place. Then I hand-couched yarn for the flower center. During the quilting, I stopped to addition a darker yarn that will go around the center. I'll hand stitch it on later. The center should have been stitched on the sky before anything else was fused on because handling the piece during the couching caused some of the pieces to lift. I may have over-ironed my Winder Under, or it may have been old, I don't know. Anyway, I did a little hand basting to secure the petals and leaves. I'll cut this away as I quilt. And I just needed it to stay on a little. I didn't need the whole thing basted all over. I did use spray baste underneath the sky fabric between the batting and the backing to hold the piece together. And it's been, when I quilted this, it had been about 4 months since I quilted, so I'm rusty. I've been doing all kinds of hand projects and other projects on my regular sewing machine. So it may look like I'm all over the place. I'm just sort of doing it as I'm going. If you're a beginner and haven't done free motion quilting, I hope this will encourage you to just jump in. Once there's tens of thousands or millions of stitches, a lot of it, those little stitches aren't so noticeable. You'll step back and see the overall picture, and that's what will matter. So I'm just sort of deciding as I go which way I want to go on each petal. And because this is a lot of quilting repetition, I will speed it up later on. But at the beginning here, I want you to be able to see what I was doing. I know that there's going to be that dark yarn around the outside of my center, what would be the seeds. So I'm only going up in there and not really worrying too much about that at this point. One advantage to having the Winder Under not sticking after I manipulated it so much while I was doing the couching was that I could lift this little leaf up and do the quilting. It will be underneath it, but it was still nice not to go around the edge of that leaf, to be able to just go to the tip of the petal and back. My thread broke here. This is what I did. So we're going to pretend this is my quilting and this is hand, but it's the same difference. And I have thread, and my thread either broke on the sunflower, my thread broke underneath, and I didn't have a long enough piece to tie off. So I'm going to, this is just a scrap, ignore this part. I'm going to take some thread and make a little loop, and I'm going to put it through a needle. I'm going to try, I'm a ways away from this, so it's a little tough to see. I could use a needle threader on this one. And I'm going to make that loop. So you see that loop is just through my needle. And then pull it down so that it's further than the end. And I'm going to hold it at the needle eye so it doesn't unthread. And I'm going to go close to, or even in the exact same place as the thread's coming out. And I'm going to grab through the loop and grab my ends, make sure they're in that loop. See how the loop is hugging that end? And I'm going to pull it through. And I can do that a couple times if I really want it secure, but otherwise I'm just going to cut that off. Even if I add a short knot, you can do the same thing to bury your knot. And instead of cutting it off, sometimes you can put your needle in and swipe if it's not too long and just pull it down. I'm going to cut it off. So if it's sticking out like that, you can slide your needle in and just pull it down. Just give it a little rub, and then that's hidden. And now back on the actual quilt where you can see my broken threads there. Now back to quilting. I will start by dropping my needle and pulling up my bobbin thread. The white basting threads really, when I was finished, they really hardly showed. So I'm cutting off a knot to one of them, and it right down there where I have a lot of stitching on the tip of the petal, I wasn't too worried about getting them out. Like I said, they really hardly showed once they're quilted over. I pull out as many as I can, of course. I should say that I am doing this on a Handi Quilter Sweet 16 sit-down quilting machine, and I do love this machine. So I am in control of moving the quilt underneath the needle. There are no feed dogs, and this machine is strictly for quilting. I'm wearing gloves because it helps me get traction on the fabric. There are a lot of different ways that you can quilt, of course, without gloves. And then there's other kind of tools that can help you hold and push the fabric. I just really prefer these gloves. The last thing I decided to do was to go around the edge of all the petals, sometimes off the edge and intentionally. I'm okay with them fraying. It's just to hold them down, and it will help a little with some of the fraying. And I jumped across, and you can see a little blue coming through around the center. That blue fabric, I'm not worried about it in most cases because the little yarn I'm going to couch around the edge will cover it, but there is this one place that's a little longer, so I know it'll come out past where I'm couching, and I decided to just cover it with thread. So that's what I'm doing here. So you can cover the paint up if it's a small area and you don't mind the buildup of stitches. So I'll just finish going around all the edges. Next time will be part 2, and I'll be quilting the leaves. If you like this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. And I appreciate you being here. This has been Ann. Thanks a lot for watching.